You're in the 06010. Fantasy Focus.
What's good, friends? Welcome into Fantasy Focus Football alongside Field Yates. My name is Daniel Dopp, here to get you guys ready with everything that you need to know about running back tiers today, Field Yates.
Huge show, huge, gigantic, the most important position in football.
It really is. I mean, it's not as deep as the wide receiver spot, right? No. It's a little bit more top loaded up at the front, so it's going to be very
valuable.
Yeah,
supply and demand is different here versus wide receivers, where we were at like wide receiver 52, and I was like, how is Jaden Reed this low? Like, I think he's a good player. Meanwhile, my running back 52 is like, this guy is strictly a backup.
100%. It's going to be very fun to dive into the running back tiers today. If you did not check out yesterday's show, go check out our wide receiver tiers. The quarterback tiers were before that, and we did a mock draft at the beginning of the week.
Yeah.
If you're in a 10-team league, go check out our mock draft to see which way we went. On next Monday, we are going to do a 12-team mock draft for those in 12-team leagues, so make sure you check that out. But first and foremost, Field Yates.
Yeah.
I want to ask you a question.
Okay.
Do you remember the very first professional sporting event that you went to?
I believe it was an NFL playoff game between the New England Patriots. I'm from outside of Boston. Many of you that have been listening to the show for many years probably already know that.
Okay.
Against the Cleveland Browns. The Cleveland Browns
wow.
actually won that game in Foxborough. I was very fortunate to start to go to a lot of Patriots games shortly thereafter. But I was one of those, I was like a delayed first entrant, and then was very grateful and very fortunate to go to a lot of professional sporting events after that. Yeah, how about you?
That's fair. I was 5 years old when my dad took me to the Palace of Auburn Hills to watch the Detroit Pistons take on Chuck and the Philadelphia 76ers, being able to watch Charles Barkley. There were no fights. I remember specifically, though, my dad bought me a jersey. I wish I still had it. I mean, unless your parents basically tuck it away, it's not going to stick with you for 40 years, right? But I remember buying a jersey, and I was so excited because I was like, Dad, can I hold it up? I don't want to block anyone's view, but I'm so excited.
Yeah.
And he was like, sure, go ahead. And mind you, like, I'm up to someone's waist. Like, there's no way I'm blocking anyone's view by holding up my jersey as a little kid just to be pumped. But we were in the nosebleeds.
Okay.
It was not like, they weren't great seats, but I vividly just remember being able to do that with my dad, which makes me think, Field Yates, someone may have that moment tonight.
Nice.
The Hall of Fame game. Football is back.
It's back, baby.
Detroit Lions, Chargers. I mean, Trey Lance is getting this start, I heard.
Can we talk about this just for 1 second?
Please.
The concept of the first preseason game. There are two types of people in this world. There are those that say, yeah, dude, like it's going to be a bunch of guys who will be playing, whatever, like backyard football with like their buddies from high school in like 3 months because they won't actually matter. Or there are people, I think you and I are in this camp.
I think so.
You know what? I haven't watched a football game since basically February in the NFL. Obviously, there's been the XFL and some other exhibitions, but the NFL hasn't had a game since February when the Eagles triumphantly won Super Bowl 55, whatever it was. Anyways, bottom line is this. It's been a while. I'm excited to watch some football tonight.
Me too.
May not know all of the players that are playing in the third or fourth quarter. Maybe some guys playing in the first and second quarter as well. But happy to have football back. Can't wait for Canton, Ohio, which, of course, is the site of the Pro Football Hall of Fame.
It is going to be a ton of fun. Just the idea that we have football back, it's on our doorstep. We are all ready for it to be here. All right. We got a lot that we're going to dive into. First and foremost, though, Field, I want to make sure, just in case you did not listen to any of these other shows, I want to make sure that you guys know where we're going to be in the next coming weeks.
New York first.
New York City, August 7th, Gramercy Theater.
FantasyFocusLive.com for tickets. $35.
$35. It's going to be super awesome. And then we're going to Philly on August 14th. That's FantasyFocusLivePhilly.com. Same exact thing. $35, meet and greet, all that good stuff. So come check us out in New York or Philly. But that's not all, Field Yates.
Yeah, we're headed to the Bahamas, which is August 21st through 24th. Bubble wrap included for those that have the possibility of breaking their shoulder while there. It's the ultimate draft weekend. It's provided, of course, by ESPN and the great people at the Baha Mar Resort. It is beautiful. The weather is incredible. There are approximately 50 pools. That might be a slight exaggeration, but not a
or it might not.
One.
Yeah.
It's very close to there. We do the draft experience on Saturday. There's tons of Q&As and roundtables. Head on over to bahamar.com/draft if you are interested in going. And a reminder, as you have told people, Daniel, it doesn't have to be you and 10 friends. You don't have to convince 9 other people to be there. If you want to go because you love fantasy football and you want to hang out with us,
Come hang. Yeah, we will put you in a league with other people. You'll be able to have a ton of fun being able to do that. By the way, Todd Gurley's going to show up. Yeah, Golden Tate's going to show up. Kyle Rudolph and a bunch of other people. It's going to be a ton of fun.
And last thing about it is that one of the beautiful parts about going to the Baha Mar Resort is there is incredible weather and just outstanding cocktails.
Oh,
You're the kind of person that enjoys drinking a cocktail on the beach in some tremendous weather or a nice venue in general with some great weather, then the Baja Mar is probably for you. Now, you and I are too busy working these days to do something like that.
Correct.
We're too dedicated to the game. We want to make sure that we grind out the content, working on rankings and tiers and all the things that a hard-working citizen does.
Absolutely.
Do you know anybody who gets to hang out and drink cocktails right now?
Boy, right now, I mean, who would get to do that during the first week of fantasy football season? I have no idea who would just feel.
Not you or I.
No, I mean, I just feel like because we're men of the people field. Oh, that's right. It's Mike Clay. If you're watching our YouTube stream right now, you see Mike Clay drinking a golden margarita at the Versace mansion.
Oh.
I'm sorry,
Is that
field.
Mike's house?
I don't understand this. First off, why didn't we get an invite? And how is Mike Clay at the Versace mansion?
What is a golden margarita?
I have no idea.
I just drink margarita.
Just a regular margarita?
Yeah. Mike's definitely got his pinky out when he's sipping that cup there. Very uppity Mike Clay. Looks so serious, by the way.
He does.
In that photo. Thinking of you, Mike. Hope you're having a good time at the Versace mansion. Hope you're enjoying vacation.
I got to be honest. It was a $5 daily fine before that, but now I know that that's what he's doing. I do think that we need to up the fine at this point.
He's on the hook for a steak dinner.
I think so. I think that's right.
All right, tiers.
Let's dive into some running back tiers, Field Yates. Just in case people did not listen to the last couple shows, I just want to make sure we sometimes look at tiers differently. What's the point of us being able to do tiers when we're doing this?
Yeah, so the tiers is sort of like buckets of players, and the idea is that the player at the top of the tier and the player at the bottom of the tier may not represent dramatically different values. So the example that I keep using is that the RB4 in my rankings might be very close to the RB5. The perfect example is like Nico Collins and Brian Thomas Jr.
Yep.
So close in value to me. Meanwhile, you go from a spot where it's like, my RB12 versus my RB13 may just feel a little bit different. They're only one spot apart in the rankings, but they feel like a different category of player. So we're throwing players into tiers to say that while I do have Bijan Robinson higher than Christian McCaffrey, these two are pretty close in value, that if somebody feels like Christian McCaffrey deserves to be ranked higher than Bijan, or at least close to Bijan, I don't believe that's a terrible idea.
I just want you to know that you went 3 for 3 right there with Bijan, rather than saying Bijan. You did it. I mean, I know you're locked in. You're trying.
Well-oiled machine. So let's get to it, Daniel, because I would argue that running backs and doing a good job with your running backs is the most tried and true way to win your fantasy football championship in a 10-team league. It's a little bit different when you get to like 16 or dynasty or whatever it might be. But in standard scoring 10-team leagues, you got to nail these running backs. Let's begin with our S tier. You've got only 4 players in your S tier. I'll give you my 6 to start.
All right.
Bijan Robinson, Saquon Barkley, Jahmyr Gibbs.
Yep.
The jersey you're wearing right now.
That's right.
Good reminder, people. Gibbs is wearing number 0 this year.
It changed it from 26 to 0.
Christian McCaffrey, Ashton Jeanty, and Devon Achane. As we discussed yesterday, as you move further away from one, tiers become a little more subjective and the players become a little less important. So because of how instrumental running back success is to fantasy success, I wanted to maybe give a little bit more weight to these players at the top of the running back board here, Daniel.
Absolutely.
Bijan Robinson, if you were to do 100 drafts and you had the number 1 pick, approximately how many of those 100 number 1 overall picks would you use on Jamar Chase?
Probably half of them, I would
50,
say.
Okay, and then the other 50 would be...
I would probably be Bijan.
Okay,
Bijan is my clear-cut number 1.
So I
back.
think it's close. I think it's really important that you have a conversation between Jamar Chase and Bijan Robinson.
Agreed.
You have the number 1 pick in the draft.
Yep.
I know that people... Bijan was really, incredibly talented and really good as a rookie. Last year was just a remarkable season. I wanted to pull this up here. If you look at his last 12 games of last season.
Last 12 games.
Bijan had 20 or more fantasy points in 10 of them, Tim.
Yes.
Now, that's going to be hard to keep up that sort of pace. That's like, 85 or so percent, 83% of your games, you're scoring 20 or more fantasy points. That's the upside in Bijan. I would say that he is the best bet to play close to a full season, finish top 3 in rushing attempts, and finish top 3 in catches of any running back in the NFL.
And he's going to continue, I feel like, to be the goal line guy. Tyler Algier is still there, but he's going to get his goal line work as well from that perspective.
Yeah, they were better. The stat
Down the stretch
last year, I thought was good last year with Bijan. I don't have many qualms about how they utilized him. And unlike a couple of the running backs that we're going to be talking about right now, or shortly after this, age, not really a concern for Bijan, right? This is his 3rd season. And while Jahmyr Gibbs is same year as Bijan, the difference between Bijan and Gibbs is pretty simple. David Montgomery, right? David Montgomery is a far better player than Tyler Algier. So Bijan, to me, belongs in that player number one overall conversation. In our mock draft project, I made sure to draft Bijan at least once. For those that don't recall what that was, we drafted 20 times, 2 times from each position, 1 through 10.
Yep.
And I feel like in prior years, I get a little bit too stuck on just one player in that number one overall conversation. Bijan certainly belongs in that.
Yeah, thank you, Zach Robinson, by the way, for being able to help unleash the Bijan that we've been waiting for.
All right, so next up is Saquon Barkley. And this is interesting, Daniel, because you and I, and like we're pretty far apart here.
Yes, we are. I'm definitely lower than everyone else on Saquon here at ESPN.
So I want to give the floor to you then. I think most people probably know why someone like me would have Saquon all the way up at 2. I'll retort after you go, but tell me why you have Bijan not just as RB6, but in a different tier.
I have him in the next tier, the A tier. Yes, I have Saquon Barkley a little bit lower because I'm really concerned just about the historical regression after such a heavy workload. Do you know how many carries he had last season?
I think the answer is 345.
That's in the regular season, yes, but he also played in the playoffs, and he did not get a first-round bye, by the way. He played 20 football games last year, touched the ball on the ground 436 times. Do you know who had more rushing attempts at the running back spot over the last 25 years than Saquon did last year?
436.
436.
I'm going to guess there was a Derrick Henry season in there. No? Nobody. Nobody, huh? The answer is nobody.
No one carried the ball more than Saquon Barkley did over the last 25 years last season.
Yeah.
He had the 3rd most touches by a running back in over 2.5 decades. 482. You weren't even born, Field, the last time that someone touched the ball this much
82?
Is the thing.
No, I was definitely way not born.
So I am very concerned about
the.
I was born in 82.
I was 82?
Yeah, 1982. Yeah.
You're the youngest looking 43-year-old.
Stop it. I appreciate you. But this is the thing. I'm concerned about historical regression, right? Guys that have this heavy workload, guys that next year, it just feels like you played 20 games this season before and he was healthy through that entire time. So do I believe that he has a chance to finish at the very top of this list? Absolutely. It's Saquon Barkley in a very run-heavy offense. But there's a part of me that feels worried about that regression, given the potential for either injury or getting dinged up after what was such a heavy workload season last year.
Okay, so I have him as RB2, as I mentioned. I think the case for Saquon is that if you go back through each of the past 3 seasons, the Philadelphia Eagles have a top 5 rusher in the NFL. It's 3 different players.
Yeah.
DeAndre Swift, Miles Sanders, and Saquon Barkley. This is to take nothing away from Saquon in the skill set, but to also note that this is probably the best ecosystem for any running back in the NFL.
And he doesn't really have a backup running back behind him that you're scared of.
Yeah, it's Will Shipley, I guess. An important insurance policy, but Saquon is obviously the man. They're going to feed him the ball a ton. They are amongst the run heaviest offenses in the NFL. We talked about this yesterday with A.J. Brown. Like, they just don't throw the ball as much as some of the players being drafted a little bit ahead or a little bit behind A.J. Brown. He had 7 games of 20-plus fantasy points last year. He had 2,000 rushing yards. I don't know. Maybe this is low-hanging fruit by me, but Saquon is built different. Like, he's one of those guys that, like, if you look at the players that have not had 436 carries, but have had monster workload years, those that have been able to hold up, it has been the likes of Derrick Henry, and Saquon and Derrick Henry physically on a different stratosphere.
You could tell me, Daniel, I get what you're saying, but I just think that he gets to be one of the outliers because there are outliers, right? Derrick Henry can be one of those guys. I get Saquon can be an outlier.
Yeah.
So certainly not going to fault you for this. I'm not going to fault anyone for taking Saquon early. If you want to draft him as your number 1 running back, I'm fine with that.
Okay, fair enough. I'll keep going then through here because there are a couple more. Maybe the most interesting player in the entire running back board is coming up next. Jahmyr Gibbs, you got him as RB2. I have him as RB3. Jahmyr Gibbs plays the game at a different speed than pretty much every other NFL player. If David Montgomery is out, I think Jahmyr Gibbs catapults to RB1 for X number of weeks that Monty is unavailable. He's an elite pass catcher. He's awesome. RB4 for me is RB3 for you. It's Christian McCaffrey. Let's just have this conversation here.
Good one.
A couple days ago, the 49ers posted this video of Christian McCaffrey making this beautiful catch.
Saw it.
Sort of reaching out for a pass, kind of one of those drop in the bucket throws by, I don't even know who's under center. It might have been Brock Purdy, but I know he's missed some time recently because he became a dad. I posted it and I was just like, I understand why Christian McCaffrey is not going to go 101 this year for obvious reasons, but a healthy Christian McCaffrey is, to me, a pretty decent bet to be the best player in fantasy football that week, right? So it comes down to this. Are you convinced that Christian McCaffrey's days of being able to hold up for a 17-game season are over? And are you convinced that just because of what happened last year, Christian McCaffrey is more injury risk than any of the other guys that we're talking about? Because remember when CMC had like never missed a game until he did? And remember when Jonathan Taylor had never missed a game until he did, right? Yep. So guys can be remarkably durable until they're not. But if you knew you were getting 17, and this is an impossible thing to know, but if you knew you were getting 17 games of Christian McCaffrey, knowing what you know about the outlook of all these other players, who would you take number one overall?
Christian McCaffrey. If I'm getting 17 games out of CMC, he's the best running back in fantasy football.
Okay.
The way that they utilize him as a pass catcher, something that Saquon did not get, right?
Yeah.
Saquon didn't get the passing game volume that we were hoping to potentially see, even though he's a really great pass catcher. Eagles just don't utilize him that way. You also look at the fact that I think the 49ers have less high-end pass catching talent this year than they had last year. Debo's gone. It seems like we're not going to see Brandon Ayuk for at least a good portion of the season.
I'm telling you, man, my vibes are bad on Ayuk. Like, I wonder if we'll see him at all this
So we're replacing those two guys, and I don't say this negatively, with Juwan Jennings and Ricky Pearsall.
Yeah.
Like I could see CMC getting right back to where he was. I understand the fear, all the injury stuff you talked about, but if I get 17 games, he's my number one running back.
I feel the same way, that if you were guaranteed 17 games of each of these players and 17 games of like playing about to the expectation of their ability, then I think CMC would be number one overall. You can get 17 games and the guy just regresses. I think Christian McCaffrey is one of those where you just have to be on one side of the coin or the other.
Yeah.
Based off of the replies on Twitter, which maybe I'm the sucker for even reading the replies on Twitter. It's clear there are some people that are like, I'm out. I'm done. I don't want any part of it, right?
Sure.
I want no part of Christian McCaffrey. I was snake bitten last year, taking him number one overall. And every year there's a player or two or 10 that fit into this category, right?
Yep.
Michael Thomas became this guy once he started to get banged up. Like, there's been no shortage of guys that fit into this category. He's the guy this year that you're either in or you're out on. If you're in, then to me, I think Christian McCaffrey can go as high. If you're in. I don't think there's a case against him as a top 3 player if you're in. Like, if you're in on Christian McCaffrey, then I have no issue with you going Jamar Chase first, Bijan Robinson second, and then Christian McCaffrey third.
Yep.
And some people are going to be out, and they're going to say, I wouldn't take him with pick 10, much less pick 3, and that's fine. Because you know what? It sucks when you make the same mistake in 2 years in a row, so I get it.
Also, it's your team. Field and I are talking about where we have our tiers, but the beauty of fantasy football is you can listen to us talk, say whether you agree with us or disagree with us, and then be like, but you know what? I'm going to make my own decision. It's your team. Yeah. If you want to draft CMC because you love him, then do it. If you want to stay away because you are worried about it, let someone else draft him. It's not like you can't get another really good player if you pass on CMC, Field.
Yep, and so there are risks for Christian McCaffrey that maybe you feel... Maybe medically speaking, someone would tell you that Christian McCaffrey is no more prone to injury than Saquon Barkley or Jahmyr Gibbs. It just feels like it going into this season. And if that's enough to dissuade you from drafting him, I get it. Next up for me is player 5 in S tier, and your last player in your S tier is Ashton Jeanty.
Yeah.
Which, big expectations for a guy who's never played a game before.
Mike Play has him projected for 336 touches in his rookie season. That would have been 6th amongst all running backs last year, for what it's worth.
Yeah, so just to go back to the draft evaluation here, this is a no-weakness player. Ashton Jeanty rushed for comically ridiculous numbers last season. It looked like a video game. It was just shy of Barry Sanders' best rushing season at Oklahoma State.
We got Barry right here on the desk.
Barry. On top of that, I think this is just a reminder for those that don't follow college football closely. 2 seasons ago, Ashton Jeanty had more receiving yards than any other running back in the FBS.
Oh, so he's also a good pass catcher.
He's a legit dual threat running back, a legit 3-down player. They drafted him 6th overall. You don't do that when you don't plan to lean heavily on this player. The backfield is super thin beyond him. It's the likes of Raheem Mostert, Sincere McCormick, like not an inspiring crew behind Ashton Jeanty.
Yeah.
And you've used this stat previously. Pete Carroll from like 2012 to 2019, didn't he have like 6 out of those 8 years had like a top 5 running back utilization?
If it's not that exactly, it's very close to that. I can dig it up for in the future.
Say like alternate headline, Pete Carroll loves to run the football.
Right? Yeah, that's it.
Last one for me in my S tier, and this guy did not.
I thought about this guy. He was right on the border for me.
So it's Devon Achane, and Devon Achane does feel a little bit riskier as far as health is concerned, a la Christian McCaffrey, in part because we've seen him get banged up. He's so small, right? Like he doesn't have the body armor of the 5 guys in front of him in my rankings that makes him a bit more vulnerable. So the Dolphins have talked a ton about making their offense tougher and more rugged this year. and that includes running the football a lot more effectively. If they're able to accomplish that, it's good for Devon Achane, right? Better rushing aptitude. If they don't, and they have to play offense like last year,
Yeah.
it's probably good for Devon Achane as well. You know why? Because the guy had absurd passing game volume. He's a threat for 80 catches this year. He's one of the few guys that could lead all running backs in receptions, even if last year was so different than 2023, his rookie season, when it was just huge plays left and right. It was like 7.5 yards per carry and like 14 touchdowns. That's not the exact number, but just it felt like every game he was a touchdown bet. Last year, it was 4.5 yards a carry. It was just insane volume. He's got two different paths to becoming an elite player, in my opinion.
You know, it's really funny. While you're saying that, it made me think about Jalen Waddle, like his teammate, where it's like his first season was just so different than his second season, but they both were actually really good seasons from a fantasy perspective.
Totally, yeah.
He definitely lost all of the efficiency that he had as a runner. Those explosive plays basically evaporated last year because the Dolphins' offense was just sputtering without Tua.
It really was.
But when you lead the NFL as a running back in reception, or lead all running backs in receptions, that just elevates even though we lost that efficiency, it helps elevate his floor for us in healthy games with Tua Field. He averaged 22 fantasy points per game. I don't know, he's not when you say the Dolphins want to be more rugged, Devon Achane isn't the guy that I picture.
It's definitely not him. They drafted Ollie Gordon out of Oklahoma State, 5th-round pick.
Jalen Wright from last year too, is that still a thing or not really?
Still a factor, yeah. But
Okay.
I'm at least the idea of them being a better blocking offensive line comes into play, which could benefit Devon Achane.
Yeah.
You want to go to the A tier here?
Yeah, and just for what it's worth, my S tier, Field had already said it, but it's Bijan, Jahmyr Gibbs, Christian McCaffrey, and then Ashton Jeanty. I just have those 4.
Bijan.
Oh, dang it. And you've been giving me you even laid it on the table. You said Bijan so many times.
Yeah.
All right.
Let's
move ahead to the A tier.
Yeah. And these guys are all awesome players. These guys are all, I think, have top 5 upside. They just have like 1 or perhaps 1.5 mitigating factors relative to the players ahead of them.
Would all of these guys in the A tier still be considered RB1s for your team? Meaning if you left the draft with one of these guys as your RB1, you'd be happy?
Yes, I would. Because as you get lower into the tier, it means you have excellent wide receiver or tight end depth.
Okay.
Here we go. A tier for me. Derrick Henry, Josh Jacobs, Jonathan Taylor, Chase Brown, Bucky Irving, Kyron Williams, and James Cook.
That's a good list of running backs right there.
I mean, we probably need to spend the least amount of time on Derrick Henry. He's Derrick
bleeping Henry.
Yeah. We just know with Henry, the biggest mitigating factor is that he does not catch a ton of passes.
What's changed from last year to this year? Anything?
Not really.
I get he's a year older, but again, like we were kind of talking about with Saquon, if there was one guy that you were going to be like, hey, this guy might defy like the age thing, Derrick Henry in this Ravens offense is it.
Just, the difference between Derrick Henry and, Christian McCaffrey playing 17 games, that if CMC plays 17 games, you expect 70 catches.
Right.
If Derrick Henry plays 17 games, you'd be happy with 30. I mean, you'd be, and obviously Derrick Henry has other strengths.
Yeah, I'm expecting 18 touchdowns if he plays 17
You're
games.
always looking at it as like, how many pathways do you have to scoring a lot of points in a given week?
Yeah.
Josh Jacobs was top 6 in rushes, rushing yards, and rushing touchdowns last season. And how about this? He caught a touchdown, the first of his career last year.
How about that?
That was big. Jacobs is kind of like Derrick Henry light, just elite workhorse volume. Should get most, if not all, of the goal line carries. Not great depth behind him. Marshawn Lloyd is once again banged up. Their 3rd-round pick out of USC last year. So to me, Josh Jacobs, just steady Eddie with plenty of touchdown upside.
Yeah, second most touches of his career last year.
Yep.
So
he was awesome last year for them. Jonathan Taylor, also sort of like Derrick Henry light. He had 18 catches last year. So the passing game volume is a little bit more volatile for Jonathan Taylor than it is some of the backs ahead of him. And we know if Anthony Richardson is the starting quarterback for the Colts, that decreases the upside of Jonathan Taylor because for all the things that I got way wrong on Anthony Richardson.
we all got way wrong, Field. We all got wrong.
Hold on. What we do know about Anthony Richardson is that he is going to be utilized as a runner in the red zone and near the goal line.
For sure.
Chase Brown, awesome football player.
Love Chase Brown.
Was great. The last 13 games, remember Zach Moss was a factor for the first 4. He had 49 catches over the last 13 games. Do the math. Over 17 games, that would be pushing for like 65-ish catches for Chase Brown. And once again, it looks really thin behind him. The name you probably need to know that you haven't spent much attention or you haven't paid much attention to so far is Taj Brooks, 6th-round pick out of Texas Tech. Had monster couple of years at Texas Tech. He looks like the next man up, which is an important thing to know. for Chase Brown. Samaje Perine also there. One of my favorite targets in drafts in the second round is Bucky Irving, who had just a monster second half. And what you love about Bucky is that he can carry the ball 200 plus times.
Yeah.
He did it last year.
Yes, he did.
He also had 47 catches last year, sharing time with Rachaad White. So there's proof of concept that even if Rachaad White has a role, not a massive role, but a role, Bucky Irving can still absolutely dominate for fantasy purposes.
Absolutely.
Kyron Williams, third in rushing attempts last year. The big thing with Kyron is that he's not going to catch a ton of passes if the Rams continue to play offense like they have.
Remember when we were worried because they drafted Blake Corum?
I am.
And then that didn't really do anything?
Yeah. And this year they
Then
drafted,
this year.
yeah.
Like, are we worried
Darqueze
now?
Hunter,
Because they've now invested 2 straight years in a backup running back. Is there any reason to give you pause for that?
Well, I think there's a chance that by the time this podcast is in your ears, if you're listening or watching for that matter on YouTube, there's a chance Kyron Williams has a new contract in hand. They've been talking about this. He has been practicing still, but they fully expect / plan to extend Kyron Williams, which to me would be a more consequential investment than drafting a 3rd and 4th round running back.
He is the guy in that offense, too. He had 80% of his team's goal-to-go rushes. He is the goal line guy. He's 3rd in touches, 3rd in rush attempts last year. So, yeah, love Kyron.
Last one for me is James Cook. So many touchdowns last year. He was tied for the NFL lead with 16 rushing touchdowns.
Yep.
Had only 1,007 rushing yards. You know, the Bills had some games last year. They were up big. They have a decent amount of running back depth and Ray Davis and also Ty Johnson. And they do have Josh Allen, too, who can handle some rushing. So, like James a lot, this would be the end of my A tier. This is quite a bit wider, though, than yours.
Yeah, my A tier is a little bit thinner here. I would start with Devon Achane, then do Saquon Barkley, Jonathan Taylor, Bucky Irving, Chase Brown, and Derrick Henry. So we have a number of similar names other than Devon Achane and Saquon Barkley, a number of similar names here in this category. The one thing I would like to say, Field, I'm looking at Chase Brown just one more time in case anyone didn't check it out or didn't hear it the other day. Zach Moss no longer on the team.
Yep.
So Chase Brown is going to be that guy. When Zach Moss went down in week 8 last year with a neck injury, he was running back 6 from that point on.
Yep.
RB6, second most receptions amongst running backs over that span. He was 3rd in goal-to-go touches over that span. Doesn't that sound like Austin Eckler light to you?
It does. They actually there was a time last year where I was fearful for Chase Brown's well-being though, because there was a stretch of 56 straight running back opportunities that went to Chase Brown.
Just to Chase Brown.
No one even played besides him.
Yeah.
It was oh man, Chase Brown didn't play much yesterday. Only 94% of the snaps.
Yeah. Well,
insane.
It's a huge workload, obviously. Samaje Perine, like you mentioned, and Taj Brooks, 2 guys that are going to be behind him, but interested to see how that's going to work out. By the way, Bengals just added Noah Fant.
They did.
I saw that.
Fantastic.
So that'll be something. Anyone else here in this tier that you feel like is worth diving into? Because I think these guys at the top, like you had said, I mean, they're the ones that we lean on basically every single year. We know the most about these guys, and I think everyone kind of feels like the top 10 to 12 running backs in fantasy football, even if we have them in a slightly different order, we all kind of view them similar-ish, right?
I would agree on that. Yep.
All right, so let's move to our B tier then. This is where my RB2s start.
This is beefy for me, and I want to give you 2 players that make me nervous. One that I'm way too high and one that I'm way too low.
Okay.
All right, buckle up because we got
you got a big B tier.
For those that are watching right now, you can see James Conner, Alvin Kamara, Kenneth Walker III, Chuba Hubbard, Breece Hall, Omarion Hampton, David Montgomery, DeAndre Swift, Tony Pollard, Aaron Jones, Isaiah Pacheco, and Caleb Johnson.
Okay. It's a big list, Field.
You know what makes me, and it's a huge list. And again, as I said, these become a little more gray, shades of gray, as opposed to black and white as far where they should start, where they should finish.
Okay.
All guys who feel like they could be legitimate starters for their team and carry a lot of the workload.
Absolutely.
I'm going to start with a couple of guys that make me nervous. One who makes me nervous, one who makes me excited, and I'm starting to wonder if I just need to make the move now. Breece Hall at RB18.
Yeah.
No idea.
Yes.
What do you do with this player, Daniel? So Breece Hall 2 years ago, or last year at this time, if you had Breece Hall in Dynasty, he was RB3?
Probably.
4?
I mean, right there next to, Bijan, Jahmyr Gibbs, maybe.
Yep. Bijan, Jahmyr Gibbs, maybe Saquon.
Yep.
But Saquon going into last year, there's a very favorable opinion. But Saquon reshaped the narrative around his own brilliance with last year's season.
Yeah.
Bottom line is this. Breece Hall looked like the kind of guy who could be the centerpiece of your dynasty team for a while. The Jets made 2 investments in the draft last year, and unlike with the Rams, feels like they plan to use these guys a lot. There's been a lot of positive reporting on Braylon Allen, their 4th-round pick out of Wisconsin last year, player who, by the way, actually is missing a couple days of practice right now, but the early returns were strong. I have no idea on Breece Hall, man. He feels like, stay away is too strong. I tell you people all the time, like, I don't stay away from players entirely. He's the kind of guy that's harder to pull the trigger on for me right now.
I am totally with you. Okay, so Breece Hall has never topped 1,000 yards rushing.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you think that with Justin Fields and the rumblings of the other running backs getting involved, that he's more likely to do it this year than he was last year?
I don't think so. And
that doesn't mean that he can't, but I don't think he's more likely to given the changes, right?
This is the important part too, is that he's no longer part of this regime.
Right.
Like, this is a new regime.
Right.
He's not one of their guys. Right. Sometimes when you draft a player or you're the coach of the player when he is drafted, there's a loyalty because you saw them from the beginning and you made an investment. And whether it's intentional or not, sometimes you try to justify those investments, right?
Yeah.
He's not in that scenario anymore. It just makes me extremely nervous. I don't know what to do. I almost wish the Jets would volunteer some clarity, but they're not going to do that.
No. And here's the thing. For us in fantasy, if you're not going to get those rushing attempts or potentially get that rushing volume, we know he's an excellent pass catcher field.
He's great.
94 targets last year and 76 receptions. Do you think that he's going to have that many targets with Justin Fields? Justin Fields doesn't throw the football to running backs that much.
Definitely not. So I think by the time, and I kind of feel like a good show at the end of August would just be like, what's changed the most in our rankings?
Yeah.
Breece Hall could be much lower, and the player who could be much higher is Omarion Hampton.
Yes.
So he was, I think, the 21st or 22nd player on my final big board when we got to the draft in Green Bay this past year. He ended up going 22nd overall to the Chargers. Ashton Jeanty is a superior prospect to me. I thought it was a decent gap as well. There's a chance that Omarion Hampton has a better outlook for fantasy sooner than later this season for Ashton Jeanty. The biggest detriment for Omarion Hampton is, of course, that Najee Harris was also signed to a contract.
Yep.
Najee is fine, right? Like, he's not this star running back who's going to get a ton of time, but he's also not a bum, right? Like, Najee Harris, say whatever you want about the idea of drafting him with the 1st-round pick by the Steelers all those years ago. He's fine, right? Yes. Like, he is a league median running back, maybe a little better than that, right?
Sure.
Right now, he's not practicing. He had this very unfortunate 4th of July fireworks incident that's impacted his eye. We don't know when he's going to be back.
Yeah.
I don't think it's going to cost him the full season or anything like that. He could be back tomorrow. But right now, Omarion Hampton's getting an opportunity to earn RB1 status for the Chargers. It is the perfect scheme for him. They just want to beat the crap out of you at the point of attack and win with power. And that's what Omarion Hampton does. I think I called him 240 on the podcast yesterday. Sometimes you get excited. You overinflate things. Maybe a 220, 221-pound back.
Okay.
Who runs a 4.45. Man, part of me was like, do I just throw him into like RB11?
Doesn't that just feel, and in a Jim Harbaugh-led offense where it feels like Justin Herbert's going to have some weapons to be able to make defenses have to play back. You're going to have to respect Justin Herbert and these wide receivers.
Totally. And if for some reason Najee is not available by week 1,
boy,
we're putting the cart before the horse. But if he's not available in Brazil when they play, I believe, the Chiefs in week 1 in Brazil, the Chiefs, Omarion Hampton would probably be a top 10 running back for me.
It's gonna be tough to keep him out of there if he's not splitting time, because that's the reason why we had him where he was.
Yep.
Was because of that potential committee volume with Najee.
Yeah, let me just clarify the part that I said about him and Ashton Jeanty and the value being like really close sooner than later. Like, if Omarion Hampton becomes the guy in the Chargers offense, this team is good enough that I don't think they're going to have to like commit to throwing the football, and they could just be grinding people out on the ground. There's a world, I don't think this is a likely world, but like the Raiders are just a hot mess because they play in a really tough division, and Jeanty just gets bottled up a little bit because they're just not an effective offense. I don't think that's likely, but my confidence in the Chargers being good is higher than my confidence in the Raiders being good. Playing on a good offense equates to good things.
Yeah, very much so. I agree with that. Those are two interesting names here in that list field. Another one that I still don't
names
I don't know, and he's a little bit farther down my list. I'll just mention this. My B tier is Josh Jacobs, Kyron Williams, James Cook, and Alvin Kamara. That's the beginning of my RB2s. My middle tier RB2s, which for me is the C tier. You have already listed all of these guys. But that's Kenneth Walker III, Breece Hall, James Conner, Chuba Hubbard, and Omarion Hampton. I feel like when I look at these guys, the one guy that you have up here that I just have some questions on, we haven't ranked similarly, is DeAndre Swift. I still don't totally know how to be able to approach DeAndre Swift in this offense. Over 1,300 yards from scrimmage last year, but he never found like that Lions passing game volume that he had. They didn't utilize him like that in Philadelphia. Last year, they didn't really utilize him like that in this offense. And now, obviously, with Ben Johnson coming in, everybody is basically making comparisons to how can Ben Johnson turn this team into what the Lions were last year? Is he this guy's version of Jahmyr Gibbs?
I don't think he's that.
I don't think he's that good.
I think he's, the idea is like, can you get a discount version of Jahmyr Gibbs? Things going in his favor, and we've said this about every Bears player we've talked about so far, so let's just repeat it. The Ben Johnson bump, right? Like, again, mastermind offensive coordinator, better offensive line, much better offensive line, which certainly helps DeAndre Swift. On top of that, the only player the Bears really added this offseason in the backfield is Kyle Monangai from Rutgers. I think it was in the 7th round. Monangai's a good player. Never fumbled in his college career. Never. He's awesome. Like, I think he's a name that has my attention. He's like a deep sleeper.
Okay.
But there's not a super threatening presence for DeAndre Swift right now.
Oh, really?
He's a capable pass catcher in what should be a better offense, and I do believe that the offensive line gives the rushing attack a much better outlook as well.
Yeah, absolutely. When I look at this, do you mind if we move on to the next tier? It will be your C tier.
You throw me names and I'll just,
My D tier. It's my D tier. It's field C tier. This is what I consider RB2s in a timeshare, plus Isaiah Pacheco coming off of a down year. So you got Pacheco just a little higher than me. Although, if we just want to quickly mention him, like, what's changed for Isaiah Pacheco this year? Other than being healthy, the offense hasn't changed a whole lot. I'm still, after watching Kareem Hunt, I'm less concerned this year.
Yeah.
He was not efficient in any way, shape, or form. I know that they added Brashard Smith, right?
7th round pick. So, like Monangai, like deeper sleeper as well, right? If he was such a sure thing to be a big factor for them, then it would have taken him sooner than the 7th round.
Correct.
Right? He's a former Miami wide receiver who became an SMU running back who is obviously effective in the passing game. But yes, I think Pacheco is a good value here.
This is a good discount based on what happened. I mean, I think you're getting an injury discount on him here. So my next tier, running back 20 for me, the D tier would start with Joe Mixon, then David Montgomery, then DeAndre Swift, and Aaron Jones. Then I've got RJ Harvey and Isaiah Pacheco.
Let me give you the scariest name on that list.
Give it to me.
Joe Mixon.
Yeah. I'm nervous right now.
I'm comparably confused by Joe Mixon as to where I'm at with Breece Hall. Very cloudy injury situation right now for Joe Mixon.
Yeah.
He's on the non-football injury list. And I'm going to try to refrain from going down like dorky salary cap or collective bargaining agreement stuff. The non-football injury list is a list that you put a player on when he has an injury that was either suffered doing something non-football related. Like if you're playing basketball and twist your ankle, you go on the NFI, or when training away from the team facility.
Okay.
Like the implication of Joe Mixon being on the NFI list is that this is not the same injury that limited him last season.
Yeah.
Right? Because if it was the same injury as last season, you would go on PUP, like Chris Godwin, right?
Right.
So I don't know what's going on here. I use that point to suggest that there are way more questions than answers right now. I'm super nervous about Joe Mixon's availability for the beginning of the season. Who knows? For a while. But who the heck steps up behind him if Joe Mixon isn't available?
Dude, so like, is it Nick Chubb? Because Nick Chubb felt, I don't want to say this the wrong way. Nick Chubb was an awesome running back. We love Nick Chubb. Nick Chubb last year felt like the Browns just wanted to like have good feelings to get him on the field.
Dude, it was
that
like,
was it.
I mean, he and Kareem Hunt like played a decent amount, but it wasn't like either of them in different teams, obviously. But like you were just saying with Kareem Hunt, like you're not convinced he can be the guy.
No.
I'm not convinced that Nick Chubb can be the guy. Heck, his coach, D'Amico Ryans, a couple days ago was being like, was sort of tamping down expectations for him. So I believe that that Joe Mixon is maybe the scariest player right now in fantasy football.
Yeah.
Because I have zero idea. Like you could be drafting him and then not see him on the field for a long, long time. guy.
I feel like, and I've got him in this range as well, but this is one of those guys. I just don't, I can't give you a number field. I just want to say the vibes don't feel good to me. And when I'm drafting, if I have to look at him versus someone that I just have a more positive outlook on, I'm probably just going to keep passing. Eventually, it'll get to a point where I will have to say, like, wow, Joe Mixon is just clearly better than this guy.
Yeah.
And if he doesn't play, then he's fallen far enough that this draft stock isn't going to crush my team, right? I won't not win a championship because of that. But vibes do not feel good for Joe Mixon there.
Totally agreed on that. So let's get to my C tier here, which does include Joe Mixon.
Okay.
But I thought about moving him further and further down. I'm sort of erring on the side of let's wait for a bit more information.
And as we get more news, we'll continue to update that.
Joe Mixon, RJ Harvey, Travion Henderson.
Yep.
Brian Robinson Jr., Tyrone Tracy, Javonte Williams, Quinshawn Judkins. A note, Judkins still in the middle of a legal situation, has not yet signed his contract. Very, very severe allegations there. J.K. Dobbins, Jalen Warren, Austin Eckler, Travis Etienne, Ramondre Stevenson. A lot of question marks here, Daniel. So let me just give you a couple of the names that I really enjoy in this tier.
Yep.
Travion Henderson.
Oh.
I think there's a chance that he is this year's Bucky Irving.
Ooh.
And I don't mean that they play the same style of game.
Okay.
But last year, the Buccaneers started the season relying more on Rachaad White.
Yeah.
There was sort of like a deference and not a seniority. He's only a little bit older than Bucky Irving, but like you're the you're the incumbent starter.
Yeah.
We're going to rely on Rachaad White. The Patriots last offseason, I would argue curiously, paid Ramondre Stevenson this big extension. He obviously was the guy in their backfield last year. Wasn't very good. 3.9 yards per carry. Like there's, to me, not a lot of upside on Ramondre Stevenson this year.
Yeah.
Travion Henderson can flat out go. Super explosive runner. Extremely talented out of Ohio State. A factor in the passing game as well. Second round pick. Like I think it was 37, somewhere in that 35 to 40 range for Travion Henderson. If you told me by like week 5 or 6, Henderson's outpacing Stevenson by a healthy amount, well, I won't be surprised at all. Like in some ways, the strongest argument for Ramondre Stevenson is his contract, which if I say from the beginning that I thought it was a weird and ill-fated decision to sign to that contract in the first place, this is different than if the Rams signed Kyron Williams, which I would understand because he's a really valuable piece of what they do, and Sean McVay loves the guy.
Yeah.
Henderson has my attention.
I think, and I'm glad you said this because this was going to be one of the questions that I asked you because it's sort of how I feel. Do you believe that at some point this season we will absolutely see a changing of the guard and Travion Henderson will become the lead back in that Patriots backfield?
I think it's definitely possible.
It seems like it's obviously we're not going to say it's definitive and it's definitely going to happen, but it's definitely one of those things where it's like I not only like you said, would I not be shocked, but I'm kind of expecting it to happen given what he was at Ohio State field. You don't draft a guy that high when you just have another running back in Ramondre Stevenson. I don't think that they're going to be able to split the same way that you see some of these other running backs split. I think Travion Henderson is just going to come in and show the Patriots what he can do. So I love him. I love him a lot. You got a couple of rookie running backs right in here.
Yeah, I mentioned Judkins again. We're going to table most of the fantasy conversation.
That's really tough,
this
man.
Legal battle, but the Browns had high hopes for him as a player. Let me throw a couple more names here, Daniel. Again, we're getting further and further from one, so it's harder to pin down exactly where to go. I'm going to use this player as sort of a table setter for the entire backfield that he plays in. Travis Etienne, what do you do?
Boy, that one's a tough one because we know how good Travis Etienne can be, but also you kind of just mentioned this. Liam Cohen comes in, and what does he do in the draft? Goes out and drafts a guy named Bashal Tutin. Now, it wasn't like super high, right? It wasn't a first or second round pick. I think it was a fourth rounder.
Fourth round pick, yeah.
But it's enough to give me a little bit of a pause with the idea of like Travis Etienne did not look fantastic last year. You also saw Tank Bigsby come on and kind of take some of that workload. And now they draft another running back when he's not the guy that this front office brought in. It just makes you wonder what's this season going to look like for him.
So here's the good news for all three of them. The cost is so low.
Yeah, it doesn't cost you a lot.
Your team is not going to be ruined because you used the 103rd pick on Travis Etienne, right? That's the reality. The question I think you have to spin it towards is, can you find gold with one of these guys? And some of the training camp reporting has suggested that Tank Bigsby could be the guy that leads the team in carries. Etienne, obviously still a very talented running back, but like the Breece Hall conversation, he's no longer one of the guys here, right? This is a new GM in James Gladstone and Basil Tootin before Virginia Tech.
Oh, sorry.
Fans come after
Basil.
me on that
Okay.
one. I think Basil, like the herb.
Like the herb?
Yep.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
He is what he is he's small, but he's super explosive. 4.33 at the combine, fastest running back in the entire draft class amongst those that went to the combine. So there's probably two ways to look at it. One of the three is a lottery ticket, or all three of them are just kind of capital you don't need to spend.
Do you want the negative side where it's like, I don't want a backfield with 3 running backs? Or do you want the upside, which to me is, I think Liam Cohen showed us last year that even with 2 running backs in his offense, he can give us some fantasy value, right? I mean, Bucky Irving and Rachaad White both had plenty of fantasy value for fantasy managers down the stretch.
Totally.
So, which one of these running backs will it be? That is the question right now. But with where you're drafting these guys, like you said, there's no harm in getting Travis Etienne here. 2
other backfields that I'll mention, I'll kind of throw them together because they have a little bit of a similar situation going on. RJ Harvey and J.K. Dobbins.
Mm-hmm.
If we had this conversation May 15th, RJ Harvey's probably RB20.
He's in your B tier.
Yes.
With all the rest
and
of
then
them.
they signed J.K. Dobbins. I think I mentioned this during the mock draft on Monday, but to repeat, on Saturday I was doing the Back Together weekend show of NFL Live, and Shefty was on the show. And he was talking about how the Broncos weren't planning or seeking to sign a running back like J.K. Dobbins, but they got, and I'm paraphrasing here, basically the value was so good that they were like, why not bring him in, right? Like, let's get good depth for a moderate cost, which suggests, the team really liked RJ Harvey. But J.K. Dobbins is just good enough. He's a good player, right? Like he played really well last year. That he is going to, he obviously has a negative impact on RJ Harvey's value. So that's a backfield where 2 guys could have enough of a role each week to give you flex value. So could the Giants.
Yeah.
This one's tough. Tyrone Tracy Jr. was really good last season. Like, Tyrone Tracy had, I think the Giants have 2 good players in the backfield. Like, Tracy was running hard last year. He's obviously a weapon in the passing game. You may have recalled.
Yep.
He played wide receiver for the first 4 years of his college career. But they drafted Cam Skattebo, who I loved out of Arizona State.
A lot of people love Cam Skattebo.
He was a great player for Arizona State. 1,500 plus rushing yards, 500 plus receiving yards. The guy's a beast. Do you think either of those backfields becomes a workhorse backfield, or do you think that we're destined for multiple players in each of them?
I definitely think with the Giants, it feels like we're looking at a committee.
Yep.
It feels like the only way that we also wouldn't have a committee, at least in year 1, we're talking about just this year, right? In Denver, is if J.K. Dobbins potentially got hurt. I could see them being obviously either J.K. or
assuming guys
RJ.
stay healthy, I think both of these backfields are shared.
Yeah, and at that point, it kind of, I don't want to say tanks their value, but it definitely brings them down to this second tier or another tier because of the fact that high-end upside now, I don't feel like I can just feel confident, okay, we've got a really nice matchup for the Broncos this week. RJ Harvey's going to be a top 15 guy. As long as J.K. Dobbins is doing pseudo J.K. Dobbins stuff that he did last year, I think you're probably looking at more like flex values for both of these guys.
I would agree on that.
Which is unfortunate. Can I ask you, J.K. Dobbins, not necessarily he's not a bad pass catcher, but that's not what he's known for.
Yeah, I would say the strength of his game is just running between the tackles.
Is RJ Harvey the
very good pass catcher?
Okay,
the player to come for me, he looked like Bucky Irving.
Okay,
like this small but runs big and hard and physical and just like imposing.
Yeah,
super shifty. Like the player a lot. I had a big grade on RJ Harvey. I think. I don't want to dive too deep into the, me versus consensus rankings, but I think I had him 63rd on the board, which was people that I respect the most or grades. I think he went 60th overall.
Wow.
So that was one where I was more in line with how the team that drafted him saw him than the quote unquote averages out there of the draft gurus. Anybody else? Anything else from this?
Not in this tier necessarily. You got a bunch of really good names in here, and unfortunately, we just got to keep moving. Yeah.
Just hit me with your tiers.
All right. So my E tier, this is the end of my weekly starters and flex options. That's Tony Pollard, Caleb Johnson, Travion Henderson, Quinshon Judkins, which we'll see where he's going to move, and then Javonte Williams. All right. Now I'm on to my F tier, which is similar to your D tier, and these are my backups to target field. I got Jalen Warren, Ramondre Stevenson, Austin Eckler, Brian Robinson, Tyrone Tracy, Travis Etienne, Jordan Mason, Najee Harris, and Rachaad White. Those are the guys that I'm kind of looking at that if anything happened to the incumbent or the guy that I think potentially would be either in front of him or splitting time, all of a sudden their value vaults up at least our weekly rankings until something changes.
Like, it seems to be some positive buzz about Jordan Mason so far this training camp in Minnesota.
Yep.
They traded for him, right? Like they signed him. It was either an offer sheet or they just traded for him, and they gave him a new contract as well. So Minnesota seems to want to be a little more balanced in the backfield this year.
Yeah.
Aaron Jones, remember, he kind of lost some steam. That was something I meant to mention with Alvin Kamara when you're talking about some of these aging veterans, is Kamara in week 1 through 6 is more appealing to me in weeks 11 through 16, right? And that's, by the way, that's normal.
Yeah.
Football season's hard. We don't even play the games, and I get tired by week 12 myself.
This is maybe going too far down there, but if you think about this, Alvin Kamara missed the final 3 games last year with a groin injury. If you're Alvin Kamara on a team that we definitively know is not going to be good, very likely won't make the playoffs, and now we get into the fantasy playoffs, and you're like, boy, I got banged up. They just shut me down because I'm a 30-year-old running back? He might miss like he did last year. Weeks 14, 15, 16, 17. That's your fantasy playoffs because he has nothing to play for, and other than staying healthy for one more season next year.
I would agree on that.
That's some of the concern, right, with some of these older running backs on maybe bad teams. So.
For sure. I mean, and that's teams have to protect their players as they get down the stretch.
That's a good point. I hadn't thought about that, Alvin, until you had mentioned it.
So I think my D tier and your G tier kind of overlap.
Similar-ish.
D tier for me: Rashad White, Cam Scatterbu, we mentioned, Jordan Mason, Tajay Spears, Zach Charbonnet, Isaac Guerendo, Nick Chubb. He's got a little bit of a bump recently. Najee Harris, Tank Bigsby, Roshan Johnson. Remember how I was saying that you're looking at the 52nd ranked wide receiver and you're like, Jayden Reed's good?
Yeah.
Not a lot of these. There's a chance that half the guys that I just mentioned are just flat out unusable for fantasy this season.
Correct.
Right? Roshan Johnson could easily just be a pure backup.
You know how we talk about DeAndre Swift being the Jahmyr Gibbs in Ben Johnson's offense? I'm not hearing Roshan being David Montgomery in this offense.
I would agree on that. It seems like Kyle Monungai, who I mentioned earlier, is the one that's generated a little more conversation in the early goings of camp.
Yep, agreed. I think, and you've got Nick Chubb here, Isaac Guerendo, clearly a backup, but I don't feel like Isaac is going to get much run if CMC is healthy. Zach Charbonnet, we've seen him not really touch the football a lot if Ken Walker III is healthy and running well.
He's a very, very
great backup.
Policy. Yeah, as last year.
A lot of these guys are great insurance policies.
Yeah, I mean, Charbonnet had 2 games of 20-plus fantasy points last year, and starting, I think it was 4 games for.
And this is where that weekly volume, right? He will, on a weekly basis, if something happens, he can vault into an RB2 category. Jordan Mason, if we know that Austin is going to, if we know that, is going to miss any time, then he's clearly going to be that guy. Rashad White, same with Bucky Irving if he misses any time. So this tier is where it starts to feel like when you're in the draft, how many running backs have you already taken? And are you one of those people that likes to grab an insurance back of your own running back, or do you want to grab someone else's insurance back to kind of upside that maximum volume? I
feel you on that. I do. Of the players that we've recently discussed, Cam Scatterbu, Jordan Mason, Zach Charbonnet are the guys that I like the most. I mean, Scatterbu could be the starting running back. That's totally possible.
Yeah.
I've seen some clips of him running with the ones. He's a really good player. I think Tyrone Tracy's a talented guy, but the investment in Tyrone Tracy a year ago is not significant enough that you're like,
correct.
Well, we can't have Cam Scatterbu be our starting running back because he used a 5th-round pick the year prior on Tyrone Tracy.
I think Jordan Mason is my favorite name out of this list that you have, just because I still expect that offense, even though it's JJ McCarthy, right? Different quarterback.
Yeah.
I still expect the Vikings to be really good.
Yep.
And just even in a committee, I think he's going to get some goal line work. He'll get some between the tackle work. And if anything happens to Aaron Jones, like we talked about, he's on a really good offense. So I think he's my favorite name in this group.
Agreed on that. You want to rip through some of your...
this is I just went through my F tier. So this is my G tier, and it'll be your E tier. But these are my late round flyers, mostly in case of injury, though, is the way I'm looking at it. I had Cam Scatterbu. You seem a little bit different, a little higher with the way that they're going to do a committee there. I got Tajay Spears, J.K. Dobbins, Tank Bigsby, Zach Charbonnet, Roshan Johnson, Isaac Guerendo, and Tyler Algier, Trey Benson, Jerome Ford, and Jaden Blue. Excuse me. There's 2 guys actually in this list that I think are interesting to me.
Okay, hit me.
I don't feel like Trey Benson is generating a lot of buzz, in spite of the fact that they used a decent pick on him last year.
3rd-round pick, yep.
And James Conner, he did the thing that we didn't expect. He stayed healthy for a full season.
16 games played last year for James Conner.
Yeah, we didn't really see Trey Benson with the idea of like, hey, we're going to see him at some point to see what we'll get in 2025. Still a little bit of an enigma for me.
I would agree on that, but still, like, insurance policy running backs are important, especially if you're playing in a 10-team league, right? Like, as you get deeper in terms of like larger league sizes, it's just like the pool gets shallower, right?
Yes.
So the amount of players that you have available that you're taking in late rounds can be a little less sexy. So anyways, my last tier, by the way, is Trey Benson, Tyler Algier, and Kendre Miller. Doesn't it feel a lot different? Like the last 20 minutes of yesterday's show on wide receivers, you're just like, still like this guy, still like that guy. Like Darnell Mooney's legit, and Jacoby Myers is still good, and like
those are still starters.
Rashid Shaheed still good, and now you're like, yeah, like Roshan Johnson and Kendrick Miller.
It's a
and
different, very different. Yeah.
But yeah, any like big takeaway thoughts from the running back spot this year?
I think one of the biggest things, and I realize we're not diving into it until we get a little bit more information, but I don't know what to do with the Browns. If you told me that Jerome Ford was all of a sudden, because we didn't expect Quinshon Judkins to play a number of games this season, he was going to be an unbelievable value based on where he can be drafted.
Yeah, Dylan Sampson, they drafted in the 4th round of Tennessee as well. So last year, Quinshon Judkins was at Ohio State, and he and Travion Henderson, he was the power back. Henderson was like the electric back. That would be the idea on paper for him and
Dylan Sampson,
who led the SEC in rushing touchdowns last year. He was great at Tennessee. You just don't know.
Yeah.
I believe Jimmy Haslam, the owner of the Browns, along with his wife Dee, said they are cautiously optimistic on Quinshon Judkins. But once again, you all have the internet. The accusations are pretty scary there.
Yeah,
so
not great. Is there anyone else in this, like, these final 2 tiers that you feel like, boy,
you gave a good name? I'll give you one name that you gave that was good, which is Jaden Blue, who was a 5th round pick by the Cowboys out of Texas.
Yeah,
super explosive, small guy, but can really run. Had ball security issues. Wasn't the most reliable player at Texas. He's the kind of guy that will probably have a few plays in training camp or during the preseason that you're like, whoa, he plays very fast. Don't know how likely he is to be the kind of guy that like leads the team in touches in a given game, but Javonte Williams and Miles Sanders as your starting running backs, no thank you.
I was just going to say, like, this feels, the Cowboys running back situation is so
not inspiring. Right?
No.
Nothing about that. It was like, yep, got to make sure I grab one of those 2 guys.
It feels like Javonte Williams is like a not as good version of Ezekiel, like older Ezekiel Elliott, right? And then it's like,
watch Zeke get re-signed by the
yeah. And then is Jaden Blue going to be, like Tony Pollard-esque? Like, I don't think he's going to have that kind of efficiency as a rookie. But, that's kind of the role that you're hoping for if you're going to see some fantasy value from him, right?
Hey, Pollard, another nice pickup. Jeez, how good was that guy last year?
Seriously.
301 touches last year for Tony Pollard. He held up masterfully while playing through like an ankle injury through much of last season.
Running backs are very different to me, Field, because when you're going into drafts, and I think we're done with names, I just want to say this from like a strategy perspective. Like, when you're going into drafts, it is so much more important, you kind of said this off the top, to make sure that you nail the running back position. Wide receiver is deep enough that like I can feel I can go on the waiver wire, and we've proven it over the last number of years. You can grab guys that will become consistent starters for your team throughout the season. Running back just feels like, boy, I need at least one guy that is going to be the definitive RB1 of my team, and then ideally you have another couple just to be able to be safe with the depth at that position.
The chances of running backs appearing from thin air in the middle of the season are pretty low. Wide receivers, we have a decent amount of evidence that a guy can get hot at the right time.
Yep.
Or because teams play, 3 wide receivers often, you can just have multiple guys from one offense that like really get it going.
Yeah. This is going to be very interesting to see how this works out. Make sure you do some mock drafts, my friends, because this is part of why we do tiers, right? To be able to allow you to go through drafts, see where it is that you would be taking players. And when you get to someone, on the board, it's like, how different am I? Do I need to grab this guy? Because like you had said, when we're talking about this, I got a big gap between tier 2 or my B tier and my C tier, even though they're ranked right next to each other.
Totally.
So this was fun. You want to do one more?
Yeah, let's do it again.
We'll come back and do some tight ends tomorrow.
Yeah, that'll be quicker, obviously.
We'll go through more.
25. There's maybe 12 that matter.
Hey, and you know what? Reach out to us on social media, whether it's Twitter or Blue Sky. We would love some questions. We'll probably have some more time, but if you got some questions right now, either going into drafts or people that you want to talk about, or on the YouTube chat, throw them in there as well. We would love to be able to answer some questions tomorrow. That's going to do it for us today. Make sure that you go check out the Hall of Fame game tonight, baby.
I got Lions 26, Chargers 13.
That would go over right now on the spread. Right now, I believe it is 32 points is where we're at on the over-under.
Overestimating the ability of the Lions' third and fourth stringers.
I think you're properly estimating right now the Lions' strengths. All right, that's going to do it for us today. Don't forget to love each other, be kind to yourself, and we'll see you guys tomorrow.
You're in the 06010. Fantasy Focus.
I will see you tomorrow.
Yeah.
I'm going to do another first draft right now.
Dude.